Welcome, everybody. It is time for another episode of the Get Off My Lawn podcast, which is, of course, the best show that nobody is watching and even fewer are listening to. But that's okay. We are here. We're going to keep doing our thing. And eventually, one of two things is going to happen. We're either just going to decide to quit or we're really going to blow up huge. And that only happens if you guys will help share us. So if you're not sharing these and encouraging other people to watch, then we're probably never going to grow. So that's just all there is to it. Got a few people out there in the comments already making this lively, so I'm going to go through the announcements here real quick. Of course, we are very happy to be brought to you by Sandhills Defense LLC. So if you're in Northeast Nebraska or North Central Nebraska, let us know, and we will we'll get a class lined up for whatever you're looking for, concealed carry or learning how to run your gun or learning how guns work at all. Handgun, long gun, doesn't really matter. We can build something for you. So let us know. Also, we are out there on the Self-Defense Radio Network. Very proud to be included in that list of shows. So go over there when this one's done and check out the Self-Defense Radio Network over at sdrn.us. Some really cool stuff out there. We'll put the ticker up there. If you're out there watching live, we would love to know that you're there. So please comment, especially on the Facebook side. If you're not dropping comments on Facebook, we cannot see that you are out there live. On the YouTube side, guess what? Same rules apply. If you're not dropping comments, we cannot see you. So go ahead and get those comments in there so that we know you're out there. And I think it's going to be kind of a lively discussion tonight, maybe. So without further ado, let's bring our panelists on screen here. We have got kind of an all Nebraska panel so far tonight. So you know what? Let's start at the bottom and work counterclockwise for a change. We've got one of Lincoln's two most eligible bachelors. He's a dad, a defensive-minded dad, and you may know him as Defense Dad. How are you?
I'm good. How about you, man?
Yeah, great. Glad to have you along. Also, the other of Lincoln's most eligible bachelors. We've got them both here. Ladies, if you're single and ready to mingle, okay, I've got a fella that can make you tingle. I don't know what that means. I just made that up. You're going to have to talk to him and just work that out in a private chat that I'm not anywhere near being part of. Travis, P11 in the house. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good. I appreciate the invite. I think it's going to be a fun discussion this evening. Very fun discussion. So, yeah. Thanks for the invite, man. Good stuff.
I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to level everybody out. Guys, out there in the comments, let me know. I just pulled Travis's mic down just a hair. Let us know if we're leveled out now and we're kind of all even as far as sound goes, so that we kind of have an idea what's going on. Also, before we get too far, I have to mention this, like always, the views and opinions expressed on this podcast belong to the individual expressing them and do not reflect the views of any of our sponsors or the other panelists or the host. Everybody's a grown-up and he can speak for himself tonight. We don't offer legal advice. We don't offer medical advice because we're not lawyers. We're not doctors, although we all have probably at some point stayed in a Holiday Inn Express. So at least you know we're smart. Plus, they're on my panel, so you know they're not idiots. They're smart enough to come hang out. So, all right, let's pull that off the screen. And let's go over here. Who do we have out there tonight? Let's see. Who do we have? Sam of our Anarchy kicking things off in the YouTube comments tonight. And, of course, my beautiful bride is in the chat. She's over there in the producer's chair, holding it down out there so that I don't have to greet everybody in the chat section. She does that for us. She does all the typing, and I do all the talking. You guys know how that works. Guns and Barbecues out there thinks he's first. Blitz is in the house. 10X Shooters in the house. Scott 79. Clint Taurus. Glad to have you along. Love saying that name, just not fast. Tacos and French fries goes really well with Guns and Barbecue. So you guys are making me hungry. I haven't eaten much to speak of tonight. If you're out there, again, get those comments in so we can see that you're out there. We have a list we compile, and we always read those off. So if you're new, make sure that you're leaving comments, and you can get your name read off at the end of the show as a thank you for joining us tonight. If you're out there on Facebook, you're slacking. You're not commenting at all. Everybody so far has been on YouTube. So let's get that rolling. And if you are watching us live on Twitter, then I'm sorry, I cannot see those comments. I can't put them on screen. I will eventually see them when I go check the Twitter feed, but those just don't pop up here in real time or close to real time. So Blitz says it's a timely episode for the residents of Illinois. And I do believe that it's a timely episode for about 25 states right now. 25 of you out there live in freer America than the three of us do, but we're working on that. And actually, before we kick off the show, the reason why I came up with this topic tonight is because Nebraska's concealed carry bill has been reintroduced this year, new session, new legislature, some all new senators in the mix this year too. But Senator Bruen put another bill in. This one is called LB 77 this time. Every legislature lasts for 2 years, every session, and then every session they restart the numbers. And so it's back to LB 77, a nice low number, easy to keep track of. Constitutional carry. That hearing has been scheduled to go to Judiciary Committee, and they will hear the testimonies for, against, and neutral. That is January 26. So if you have not yet paid attention to the NFOA stuff that we did Monday night, you need to go look at the live online town hall that we did with Senator Bruen this last Monday night, Trish and myself, and get the details there. But as of Monday, the hearing wasn't scheduled. So it has been set. It will be 1:30 in the afternoon on Thursday, January 26th, 2 days from today, which means I'll be in Lincoln, which means I will not be home in time to do the show. So we will not be doing a special, we won't be doing the regular podcast. I may do a special, just a live on the way home when I get to a spot where there's enough signal to be able to do such a thing. If you are paying attention to constitutional carry in Nebraska, make sure that you've subscribed to the NFOA YouTube and or Facebook pages, because I do imagine we'll probably do a wrap up at some point before we leave the Capitol that I can just live stream real quick over on those channels. So watch for that, and then I'll try to go live here and you just kind of recap what the day was like for everybody. Of course, we won't know any results. They won't have an executive session on it yet that day, but we're pretty confident that the new Judiciary Committee, they'll go ahead and have the executive session, and they will vote on it. It won't have to be forced out of the committee. I think it'll make it out on its own. But we were going to have Amanda Suffolcool here with us in 2 weeks. She is running for a spot on the NRA board, and we were going to talk to her about that. We of course won't have that. I've talked to Amanda, let her know what's up, and she's going to pick a new Thursday, and we'll have her still on the show. It just won't be in 2 weeks. So that's what's going on there. Now, again, if you are in or near Lincoln, or you're willing to travel to Lincoln, on the 26th, we will be having a rally. Hopefully the weather is good enough. We'll just do it outside the Capitol on the steps. But there will be a rally. We'll get some info out for the people so they kind of understand what's going to happen. That starts at 11:30 a.m. on Thursday morning, the 26th. That's about 2 hours before the session. So we'll have rally for, I don't know, probably an hour or so, and then we'll break that up, and people will wander their way in, and of course the session will open up at 1:30. So that's going to be kind of the plan. If you or anybody that you know cares about constitutional carry in Nebraska, we are asking anybody, if you can hear my voice, we want you in the Capitol. Last time there was a big turnout, it was to testify against an assault weapons ban, a form of one anyway, couched as a suicide prevention bill and red flag law. And we had about 400 people show up, and we're hoping that we can have, instead of hundreds, we're shooting for thousands of people to show up at the Capitol. I won't be I won't be happy with anything less than 4 figures, but if we can get thousands instead of just 1,000, that'll be even better. So spread the word. If you know people in Nebraska, even if you're not from here, if you know people here, please let them know, especially if they're like-minded the way that we are. So, hey, AK lovers out there in the house, and Blitz gave us a super sticker. I can't see the sticker from StreamYard here. I don't know what the sticker is. It's a hot dog. Cool. All righty. To help me feel less hungry. I don't know what's going to happen. But I appreciate the gesture, Blitz, and the $1.49 super sticker. We appreciate it. Agorizers out there, Aussies out there. We got more people joining all the time. Get those comments in, guys. Let's make this lively. Okay, so I've had a lot of people ask, not me personally, but ask NFOA for some talking points. And the thing is, there's talking points, but we really want to know if you're going to contact your legislators or you're going to come testify in support of the bill. Really, it's why do you want constitutional carry? You don't really need talking points. You know why you want this to happen. So if you're going to testify, put that into your own words. You don't have to be a good speaker. You don't have to be really good at any of this. Just make sure that you're speaking from the heart. That's what really matters. Especially if you have either personal experience or secondhand experience, somebody that has been affected by the fact that they can't get a permit due to cost or what have you. That's a big one there. So we're just going to go through and roundtable this, and we will we're just going to talk about different reasons why constitutional carry is so important. So I'm not going to call on you guys, just chip in, as we go along here, but I'm just going to lead off. And my biggest thing here is exactly what I put into the description of this show tonight is we don't require a permit of any kind to exercise any right that's listed in the Constitution except one, and that's to keep and bear arms. I do not understand the concept of why permission from the government has to be attained to exercise a right. That makes it not a right. And I say this because if somebody wanted to put out a law that said, you don't get your Fourth Amendment rights, stop and frisk, we're going to bring back stop and frisk. And if you don't want stopped and frisk, you have to have a permit. And if you don't have that license, then police can just stop you anytime, pull you over. If you don't have the Fourth Amendment permit displayed on your bumper, then your car is fair game. They can search it at any point. They can just pop it open, force the doors open if they want to, and look in the trunk or in the back seat or whatever. If they find it in a parking lot, they can pull you over and force you to you don't have to consent to a search. They're just going to do it. Imagine something like that. But with a permit, you're okay. Okay. Or they do find something and your Fifth Amendment needs a permit. You don't get to plead the Fifth and not incriminate yourself unless you've got the right permit, right? You don't, you've got to have a fair and speedy trial license, or else they'll just leave you in jail forever and never get to you. None of that would fly, right? Just like the permit to speak or a permit to start a church would never fly. And so, because they're unconstitutional and we all know it. So why does a permit to keep and bear arms, why does that have any weight? Why is there such a thing? How can that be constitutional? And I don't see why it can. The Bruen decision, especially Clarence Thomas and his opinion, said that the courts are not to treat the Second Amendment like a second-class right. Now, I think by default, that also means that the executive and legislative branches can also not treat the Second Amendment as a second-class right. So that's first and foremost, that's my biggest talking point is permits aren't required for rights. And if it requires a permit, it's not a right. The Constitution says it is. Our state Constitution says it is. So that's a huge one there.
I want to address TEDx Shooter's question. Am I echoing?
Well, you got really loud there.
Here's.
I can do this, and we can adjust you.
Is that better? I
You
don't
know
hear
what?
it back.
I can do. I'm just gonna make it'll automatically adjust you guys. Let's
Okay.
just see if the auto feature works here on the old StreamYard. 10x shooters question that one there. How likely will it pass?
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we missed it by 2 votes last year.
Uh-huh.
And we had 2 or 3 turn at the last minute, and we had some abstain because it's an election year and they didn't want the vote on their record. So it came pretty close as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Now, the likelihood this year, extremely likely if Nebraska will get off its ass and do its job, and extremely unlikely if Nebraskans do what they typically do when they're not backed up against the wall. Because what fires people up to come to Lincoln is when they're about to lose something.
Mhm.
But Greater Nebraska will not chip in and help us gain something back. So if we can light a fire, I mean, the 2A Sanctuary County movement that happened a year and a half ago, I would have thought would have put a huge fire under people to come to Lincoln last year and pressure the Congress critters to do their job, the senators in the unicameral. And that didn't happen. So Nebraska, are you willing to pressure the legislators into fulfilling their oath to the Constitution of the U.S. and the state of Nebraska? Or are you just going to sit on your butt and hope somebody gets this done for you? Because if that's the case, you don't deserve it. You don't deserve that.
Yeah.
So it fires me up. It pisses me off. And I say that as an NFOA board member, seeing how the NFOA is typically there's 7 board members and about 3 or 4 other good volunteers that we can count on. So we're looking at 10 to 12 people that do things out of 1.5 million. And then when it doesn't happen, people want to know, well, why couldn't you guys get this done? Well, because you didn't care enough to try. So
Well, what a lot of people don't realize about Nebraska is being a unicameral, there's the Congress critters or representatives in there, and the people. We literally are the second house. If we don't participate, then they can do whatever they want
just
to.
keep doing whatever they want. Yeah,
I think we're the first house, but not enough people understand that. The unicameral really is the second house.
Well, I'm just saying, but most states aren't that way.
You're right.
You have the 2 parties, and we can write, we can let our voices be known, but in Nebraska, it's more important than that.
Well, John, I've said this before, guys. You've heard me say this a million times. Nebraska is a state that'll let you have fun, but not too much fun. It's like, well, you can have your guns, but we're gonna make sure you have a permit to purchase it first. I mean, it's that's how we are, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So many times, it's like I just see it in my own family. Like, well, we still get to do this, but you got to do this instead. You got to pay for this if you want to do it. You get, that's just how Nebraska is. It's a weird, like we've got these conservative values, across the board, broad, but we're just moderate on so many things. We just let so many things slide. It's like, well, you still get to have it, don't you? Yeah. Well, then don't complain. I mean, that's just, until, and then it's like you said, until we're about to lose something, people don't get fired up unless they know something bad's about to happen. Then they care. Then they
got fired up over red flag laws.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they got fired up 2 weeks too late, but whatever.
Or look at like tax issues and stuff. And
here's another thing, just to throw this out here, because you had mentioned the purchase to even the permit to even purchase
a pistol purchase permit. Yeah.
Right here in Nebraska.
Yeah.
You have to get a handgun purchase permit to buy a handgun, which basically says you've had your background check. But you cannot buy one, even if it's like Shields that always runs a NICS check anyway, because that's just their company policy. They can't sell you a handgun without that handgun purchase permit or your CHP, one or the other. So those are requirements here. Now, I've had people ask, and we didn't get a chance to address it Monday night on the town hall, but what's this bill going to do for that? Nothing. It's not going to address it. That's a fight for another day. Let's get this one done. This is the biggest hurdle. Everything else seems like a smaller bite once we get this one handled. But this bill does exactly one thing. It removes the two things actually. It removes the requirement for a permit to carry concealed, It doesn't remove the permit. You can still get your permit and have the reciprocity of what, about 38 states, 35 to 38 states. I can't remember off the top of my head that recognize our permit. So if you want to travel, interstate, you'd still want that. The other thing that happens is it changes the law to say that that no city, no subdivision, political subdivision of the state, whether it's county, city, town, village, whatever it is, can have a registration. So those of you in Omaha, you're registered. If we pass LB 77, as soon as the governor signs it, 90 days later it goes into effect. That registry has to go away. The requirement's gone. So 2 huge things there. We'll work on fixing that handgun purchase permit thing later. Just like, we'll work on a lot of other things once we get this one done. But we'll get the statewide preemption. It's wrapped up into it. It's not a separate bill this time. And then we can work on, allowing carry on campuses and things like that. There's all kinds of good stuff that we can focus on. But this has been a big focus for a lot of years. And let's just get this one done this time. But we need people to help. So what are some other good reasons why constitutional carry should be passed in a state?
Let's backtrack a little bit, John. How did we ever get to a situation where we had to get permission in Nebraska to conceal carry? Why wasn't it?
That's a great. Okay, that's a great.
What was the rationale when that was said? No, you can't.
I want to address comments I've seen from various people on.
How did we get here, John?
Because ideally, in 1986, when our state constitution got amended, and Article 1, Section 1. You know what? I can't quote it word for word.
I think it says Nebraskans can buy guns in the first sentence and bear arms.
It does. No, it really does.
It literally says that's the first thing. It's not thou shalt grow corn, thou shalt produce steaks. It's thou shalt carry guns. It's like, and yet here, I live in Lincoln, and if I want to sell defense data handgun, we've got to register that with the local PD. That's sale. That better go away too, by the way.
Yeah, that's local though.
Well, but it would. I think it would still.
It's registry.
We'd have to double check and see. Okay, so I'm going to share this on the screen because it's Article 1, Section 1 of our state constitution. All persons are by nature free and independent and have certain inherent and inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the right to keep and bear arms for security or defense of self, family, home, and others, and for lawful common defense, hunting, recreational use, and all other lawful purposes. And such rights shall not be denied or infringed by the state or any subdivision thereof. To secure these rights and the protection of property, governments are instituted among people deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. So
further, Senator, if we look at the definition of bear, to bear means to carry the weight of. And the last time I checked, if I've got a G17 or a high point on my hip, I'm carrying a lot of weight. I'm bearing an arm. So why does it matter if it's covered with a piece of fabric? Right.
Well, and that's just it. How am I more dangerous with my coat on than with my coat off? But here's what happened when that got amended. That got added into our state constitution. I think it was 1986. That was originally intended to mean no permit necessary. And lawmakers went ahead and passed a law that said it was illegal to carry a gun in a concealed fashion in public. And that didn't change until 2006 when we went from no issue to shall issue on permits. But incidentally, that's how NFOA was formed. The people that got together to get that done formed an organization, and that's NFOA. But I got people now saying Nebraska's had permitless carry or constitutional carry since that was amended. Well, the thing is, when asked about that, the governing body at the time said, "We know what it says, but if you want it changed, you're going to have to sue us." And it's never been done. It's never been, that suit was never filed. So we've had to go about this, the long, slow process. 20 years later in 2006, they finally passed the Concealed Handgun Permit Act, which allowed for a CHP. And so now it's almost 20 years later that we are trying to repeal the requirement for said permit and just allow people to exercise their rights. Now, again, it doesn't have everything that everybody would ever want, but nothing ever will. And I get really tired of the people who are looking to get everything all at once, or they're not happy with anything less. Well, dude, we're eating an elephant here. And the only way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time, can't do the whole thing at once. So, so that's how we got there, Travis, is,
I think it's important for people to know that, because we don't ever think about what happened to cause it. It's just now, what do we do?
It is.
How do we deal with it? It's a little history lesson for people. I was never taught that in Nebraska history class in middle school.
Sure. So a couple questions I've seen out there that are kind of off on a tangent here. Clint says it removes the registry. Is the registry destroyed, or is it still going to be filed somewhere? And my understanding is it has to be destroyed. More to come on that part, but which could be a court case that has to happen against the city of Omaha. I don't know, but they will not be able to. They will not be able to have that registry anymore. 10X Shooters wants to know how much revenue concealed carry permits generate. I have no idea.
Let's be honest, if you look at the cost to pay versus what the labor is going to cost to do, what they're paying per hour for employees to do it, it's probably a break even if it's $100. You think about
and the thing. Here's the thing, though, is that
state patrol and all that stuff or whatever has to happen.
What we've seen is that in neighboring states, there's not a drop in concealed handgun permits getting issued. There's actually an uptick, and the reason being is people start to carry. And of course, I'm not talking about idiots and I'm not talking about criminals. I'm talking about the normal, responsible firearm owner who starts to concealed carry because they don't need a permit to do it. You get used to it, and then all of a sudden, oh man, I'm planning a trip out to Colorado. Well, I want to carry. Well, I'm going to get my permit so that I can carry in Colorado, because it's the only way I can carry concealed in Colorado is to have my Nebraska permit. We see that a lot. We also see that from an instructor standpoint, it's a huge gold mine, because I can tailor classes now and have people sign up for, well, not now, but if that passes, I can have people sign up for just the portion of the class that they want to take, whether it's the use of deadly force part of it, or the, what happens in the aftermath of a defensive shooting, or I need to brush up on my Nebraska state statutes because I don't know what I need to know to carry. I could do just the Nebraska section of it and not talk about all that other stuff. And I still will do the full day, 8-hour roughly class that with the live fire qualification, then that will get you the certificate to go get your permit. That won't change. You'll still be able to obtain the permit. You'll still be able to take that $100 to state patrol and get fingerprinted and get the same permit that we all already have. And I can't see anybody letting that go unless they literally never leave the state and go someplace else. Let's bring Joe in here. He's out there in the green room. What's up, Joe?
Oh, not much. I had another meeting tonight. We were talking about mental health issues and a little bit of the about a rally that's coming up that
Cool.
that we're putting together, and about security and whatnot at the Capitol and so on and so forth. So yeah, it's a pretty good conversation.
Sweet.
Sorry, I didn't make it sooner.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. Better late than not at all. We're just we're keeping with our all Nebraska theme here. But we're just talking about some talking points of why constitutional carry is something that should be passed. There's 24 other states out there besides ourselves that don't have constitutional carry. One of my talking points that I had mentioned Monday night was that Iowa's already beat us to this, and it's pathetic that we let Iowa beat us against one more time for anything. So let's get this done, so at least they're not ahead of us there.
They get us on everything: football, casinos. We're just now catching up with them on casinos.
Well, they don't always get us on football.
Yeah.
Almost always, but
almost
not this
always.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So far, I mean, we really, the biggest points that I've thrown out, Joe, just to kind of catch you up, are you don't need a permit to exercise any other right, because it's a right. That means you can do it without a permit. You can do it just because you can. You don't need a permit to guarantee that you have a fair and speedy trial, or you don't have a permit to keep you from getting pulled over and your vehicle searched against your will with no probable cause, right? I mean, you just get those rights. Nobody says that you have to have a tag on your license plate that says that your car can't be searched, without just cause. It's understood it can't be done. So it's understood that you don't need a permit to start a church, or you don't need a permit to print a newsletter. Those are things that are guaranteed by the Constitution. And if permits were required, everybody would lose their mind. But all of a sudden, Second Amendment comes along. Well, we can permit that one because we think guns are scary.
Right.
And anybody that thinks that that guns are scarier than words and can do more damage than words has never had their character defamed, has never been the target of slander or libel. You can ruin not just a person, but their whole family by spreading stories about them.
Yep.
And you know what? We don't put prior restraint on the use of words. People say you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Well, if the theater is on fire, you can yell fire. It's totally legal to do. It's only when the theater's not on fire and you yell fire and people panic and somebody gets trampled, you're responsible for that. Now, here's the thing. Nobody's taken away the word fire from everybody else. They're just going to hold you accountable for your misuse of the word. We don't put prior restraint on the First Amendment. We don't put prior restraint on any amendment except one. And that is not what the Constitution says we can do. So
thankfully, the Supreme Court's reaffirmed that and said it can't be treated as a second class.
Well, unfortunately, they did, but even at that, they are what is it? GRV. They're GRVing a lot of cases and sending them back to the lower courts with the explicit instruction of how to look at the Second Amendment, but they don't get to call over to Congress and say, listen here, Senate and House, you have to abide by these same things that we just ruled on these other cases. Now, should Congress? Yes. Will they? No. It's up to the courts to fix it again. And that's always the case. When bad laws get passed and signed by the executive, then the courts are the fail-safe. But there's a process, and it takes a while to undo what was done that was bad. But we do need to point that out, and I think that's a huge talking point, is in the Bruen case that Clarence Thomas did say that the Second Amendment cannot be treated like a second-class right. I think that that should be the litmus test that legislation uses as well. Text, history, tradition. And if the legislation would use text, history, and tradition the way that the courts have been instructed to, then most of these laws won't get as far as court, because only constitutional things can get passed. But
part of the problem, John, though, too, is that one of the biggest lines of crap that I hear attorneys use is, well, it's case law. We're going off of prior case law. So even if the case law was unconstitutional or wrong, they're still using it as we're moving forward, even if it was wrong, because it's existing case law.
Thomas was so adamant in his opinion that text, history, and tradition. That doesn't mean the tradition of case law. That means tradition in 1791 when the Second Amendment was ratified. And so that's the biggest thing. It's just like the firearms that are manufactured at home. Well, in 1791, if you wanted a firearm, you pretty well had to manufacture it yourself, or most of it at any rate, because only the rich people could hire that done by somebody else. Just like anything else, if you wanted furniture, you built your own furniture. Only the rich people could hire that done, right? So any other tool was the same way. And people were building their own firearms all the time in 1791. So it has to be allowed now for the same reason it was allowed then. And the reason that was allowed then is because they just got done fighting a war with homemade firearms that the government tried to take away. And they said, nope, let's not do that. In fact, why don't you all go home and we'll make our own government that says that you can't take these away. 200 years later.
We could have made a hand cannon back then that shot, that had a barrel on it like that, like they had on the pirate ships. And it was legal. Try to do that now.
Blunderbuss,
Yeah. Right.
Well, if it's not rifled, it's still legal.
Right.
Isn't that sad, though? It's still legal today as long as it doesn't check this box or that box. As long as it doesn't have the shoulder thing that goes up, and it doesn't weigh as much as 10 boxes you might be moving, and it doesn't have the 30 magazine 50 clip thingamajigger.
Right.
The ghost gun.
Yeah, it's not invisible to airport metal detectors and costs more than you make in a month. As long as it's not any of that, then it's totally fine. You can have anything you want as long as it's just one stupid little pop gun that we tell you can have.
So, John, question for you: what were some of the strong points last year in the testifying that happened, aside from eliminating the financial burden of being able to conceal without having to take a class and pay for a background check and yada yada? What were some of the other strong points that people made you think that would be good arguments we could use again this time around? Obviously, we got to change our approach and change our game, because we're going to have to convince, the Nebraska population that this is something that we need. What do you think? What were some of the main points that people made? I read a lot of it, but it's been a year.
I'm trying to remember. I know that Brewer's office, and I think our director of legislative affairs in NFOA, Keith, was going to go back and try to pull those testimonies, those transcripts. Yeah. And just read through them, the good and the opposition from Lincoln PD and
because we need strong counter arguments, because they're going to bring the same arguments against this year. They're just going to go back in their playbook and pull the same plays out and drop them on us. So,
and here's the thing, though, we do have that we didn't have last year. We've got more arrows in the quiver this year because of the Bruen decision. That's a huge thing to fall back on and point out that you do have to be constitutional about this. But even last year, the cost prohibition is a huge one, because there are people who live in rough parts of North Omaha, and they don't have the money to go seek out a class that's going to run, the cheapest I've ever seen is $88, and that's when 88 Tactical's running a sale on their classes. So it's $88, but it's 100 or more average across the state to take a CHP class. I get more than that. I get 125 for mine. And you've got to take time off work to go do it. And so double whammy there, because a lot of the folks that live in the lower income neighborhoods there with the higher crime, they're working 2-3 jobs just to make ends meet. And so trying to find the time off, come up with the money to go take the class, and then come back up with more money to go to the state to get this permit, you're looking over $200.
Yeah, I mean, you got to do it during State Patrol office on the hours that they're open on that one day out of the week.
Take time off work to go get fingerprinted. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Exactly right, because they only do that on weekdays.
That's before you bought a gun.
so that's a huge one, is the cost. But that's not the whole thing, because, and I'm trying to remember more of the arguments for, and the things that stick in my mind are the objections that came, especially from other senators during the filibuster.
Well, and the objections from the Omaha and Lincoln PD too. Like without saying it, almost came out and said that they don't want it because it doesn't let them to do what equates to stop and frisk.
Well, and that was a lot of it. That's why the Omaha Police Union wanted to carve out, which became that amendment, which became the source of major contention across the whole state with that amendment. Not going to have such a thing. Brewer has said that that's not going to go. But that's a huge thing for sure. They basically, what happens is OPD knows who the drug dealers, who the gangbangers are, right? It's not about what you know, it's about what you can prove, right? Why is that? Because we have such a thing as due process, and even gangbangers and drug dealers have the right to due process, which is weird because they ought to have to get a permit to do it, but that's just me. But what Omaha can do is, if it looks like somebody has a firearm concealed and they're printing a little bit, then they can go up and approach that person and find out if they have a permit for that. And if they don't, they can bust them on that. And then, in our investigation, we also found, X amount of drugs on their person or in their car or whatever. And it's basically a stop and frisk in such a way that then they can use those other. It's 100% bogus, if you ask me. The unlikely ally in this that particular part of the fight is the senator for that part of Omaha that used to be Ernie Chambers' district. Senator McKinney is not a fan of the police in any way, shape, or form. He is a very, very staunch advocate for his constituency, and he has the highest concentration of black and brown Nebraskans in his district. And so he will fight for the rights of the marginalized, the minority races, until he is out of breath. And he's very, very good at what he does. He's a very good speaker. But he was not a fan at all of the idea that the Omaha Police Department would want to do that. And so he was okay with the bill without the carve out for them, but he was not okay with the amendment that carved it out. So we will see what Senator McKinney does this time, because again, he may be an unlikely ally when this bill will actually help the people in his district immensely. It'll, number one, remove the burden of cost in order to protect themselves, because yes, there's drug dealers, yes, there's gangbangers, but there's so many more good people in those districts, or in his district, in those neighborhoods. So those people deserve the Second Amendment just as much as anybody else does. And so if we can convince Senator McKinney of that, he may bring a few other Democrat senators along with him to champion the cause. We'll see. And right up next to him is Senator Wayne's district, who is the judiciary chair. So it'd be kind of fun to see how this all plays out. But Senator Wayne, from everything that I can tell, is a very fair man, and he has agreed to do his job as committee chair to the best of his ability, which means he's not going to play favorites or pick and choose and try to quell something just because he doesn't want it to go. So whether or not he likes it, Senator Wayne is, I think he understands that he doesn't just work for just his district, even though they elected him. So he's a pretty cool guy. He actually had voted to pass the bill past the first round last year.
Well, and the hard part about arguing 2 and 4 of that carve out, like, it's not like really
Cats are back.
Yeah.
At least it's consistent.
It's not like they're saying they're completely against guns. They're just afraid it's going to make them a lot harder to do their job safely. So, but reality of it, it violates people's rights. But I can see why people in law enforcement would want the ability to do that, but not defending it, because they
just
should have
imagine how much safer the world or this country would be.
The crime's going to go down because you don't know if the person you're going to be robbing might have a gun on them now. Once it's passed and everything.
Yeah, it's going to make muggers and gangbangers less safe. That's for sure. But just think
Armed
of how
society.
safe this place would be if police could stop and frisk. You know, if they could just set up checkpoints on the road and everybody has to open up their trunk. You know,
Yeah,
just
and I'm not for that. I was just saying, but you can say if their argument to people who don't really know what's going on seems like it makes sense, so people vote against it.
well, you're right, and the reason I'm saying this is to be the devil's advocate. Imagine how much honestly, can we all agree if the police could just stop and check anybody at any time, there'd be a lot less crime, right? You wouldn't dare carry anything illegal on you.
Now, here's something else to think about for OPD. If OPD is watching this, anybody who's an Omaha Police Department officer, if you're scouting out somebody and they're a gangbanger, let's just say constitutional carry passes and you're scouting somebody out. If they're a known felon and they're not supposed to have a gun and they have what appears to be a gun and they're printing, you can still approach them anyway, even after constitutional carry passes.
One would think, yeah,
because it looks like you have a firearm on you. You're not supposed to be a gun owner. You know, you can still take
but
people
it
off
could
the
be
street
somebody
from
that they've never managed to bust.
I'm not a law enforcement guy. What do I know? But I'm just saying
not necessarily a known felon. But that's just it. But back to my point here, I mean, honestly, it would be safer, right? If we had stop and frisk, we would be safer, but we would be infinitely less free.
Yeah.
And the Constitution says that we can't do it, right?
But make us freer by letting us carry, and we'll be safer.
Right. If you could do such a thing, then it looks like we need somebody with a band hammer out there in the comments. We'll catch that here.
Gosh, I was gonna message that person.
Well, okay, get the email address for Travis and then ban him.
I'm just kidding. I don't pursue stalkers. Yeah. Anymore.
That's okay. Whoever it is has a black heart anyway. So.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But that's just it. We can't have that because we have a constitution that says that you have the right to not have your personal effects searched unless there's reason to do so, or a warrant, one or the other, right? So, it would make things safer, but we can't do that in a free country. Now, the reason I say that is because if we got rid of every firearm in the country, it may, jury's still out there, it's possible. I will at least concede that there's a possibility that crime goes down, at least for a little bit, until people figure out, again, a way to... You can't unring the bell. People know how to build guns, so there'll always be people building guns. But even if there was a magic wand, we could wave the magic wand. No more guns ever, okay? That may make the country safer. I don't think it would, but I will concede there's a possibility. The chance is not zero. Now, here's the thing. We have a document that says you can't do that. That we are a free people, and it's not about making everybody safe. The Constitution was never designed to make us safe. The Constitution was designed to keep us free. Politicians, lawmakers, legislators swear an oath to that Constitution. They do not swear an oath to keep us safe. They swear an oath to keep us free. And there's a tactful way to remind them of that. There are ways that are very tactless as well and won't get anywhere. But if you can find a tactful way to remind your legislators of that, that goes a long way. Because too many of them think that their mandate is to keep people safe and protect us from ourselves. And that's what Fauci thinks. He needs to protect us from ourselves because we're not smart enough to know better, and we're just a bunch of monkeys or something. And when politicians think they're better than the people that put them in office, that's what happens. If you're going to elect somebody that understands that they work for you. They don't lord over you. But there are a lot of things we could do to keep things safer. We could govern every vehicle at 30 miles an hour, and nobody would ever be able to drive faster than 30. And look how many accidents would be avoided because speed kills, right?
Yeah.
We could make
You realize DOT's doing that, right? The FMCSA proposal is to take all commercial trucks and speed limit them.
To what?
probably 62 or 65. And then
Too
you're going to
fast.
be out on the interstate at 80 miles an hour, and
No,
someone's going to
it's
be
too
playing on their
fast.
phone.
30 would be good. 20 would be better. That would keep everybody safer. If every car on the road could only go 20 miles an hour, if it was illegal to sell a vehicle that could drive faster than 20 miles an hour, look how much safer the roads would be. Is it practical? No. Is it tyrannical? Yes. But there are things that we could do that would make things safer. But we're not doing them because safety is never the issue anyway. If we wanted to keep kids safe, we wouldn't go after guns, we'd go after fentanyl. Fentanyl has killed more people per year in the last several years than all firearms, including suicides.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody cares about that because it's not as sexy, and we don't see headlines of somebody, mass drug overdoses in a school.
Well, and think about this. So we're back to like if the existing carve out that Omaha does have, if they get rid of that and pass constitutional carry, that gets rid of the potential for licensed firearm owners to get in trouble because we do have open carry in Nebraska. However, so someone might be thinking that they are following the rules because they have an outside the waistband holster, but it's Nebraska. It's 25 degrees outside. They threw a coat on.
Yeah.
So
here's another one though. How many people? I don't know the numbers. I don't know if this has happened. I assume at some point it has. Eyebrows go up almost every time I talk to somebody who doesn't live in Omaha when they find out that if they take their gun into Omaha, if they don't have a concealed handgun permit, they have to register it with the police department.
Yep.
Well, I just have it in my trunk for, just in case or whatever. I don't care. Neither does the city of Omaha. If you get pulled over in Omaha and the officer asks you if there are any firearms, and you being a good, law-abiding, responsible citizen say, yeah, I've got a pistol in a case in the back, in the trunk. Did you register it here? I'm going to have to see your concealed handgun permit. I don't have one. Did you register the gun? No. Well, now you have an unregistered handgun in Omaha, and you're in violation. So again,
which is
has
stupid.
Anybody got jammed up? I don't know. Could it very easily happen with all of the people that drive into Omaha to shop, go to the hospital and things like that? I mean,
Yeah.
I lived in Omaha for a month. Now I have a CHP, but even if I hadn't had a CHP, there would have been a firearm in my motel room every night with me, even if I couldn't have carried it around in my vehicle or whatnot. And had I not, if things had been gone just wrong, yeah, there's every chance that, my room gets broken into, my handgun gets stolen. I report it. Now I'm busted for having an unregistered handgun in Omaha just for doing the right thing and trying to get my stuff back because I didn't know the law, because it never occurred to me that Omaha would have different laws than the rest of the state. Now, ignorance is no defense, but it's still a very real thing. People don't know all the time. People don't know that you have to register your handguns in Omaha unless they live there or they've dealt with this before. But if, again, you have the CHP, doesn't matter. But
the thing is, though, OPD has a drug task force, and they're strong in South Omaha. They're strong in North Omaha. They know who the players are. So the carve out they were looking for, all it does is hinder law-abiding citizens. I grew up in South Omaha. All my neighbors had guns, and they paid $50 for them out of the back of a trunk. They never did anything.
A minor tool out of the police tool belt is what it would do.
Right, but it never stopped them.
Now, honestly, again, it looks to me like it's stop and frisk. The way it was explained to me, it sounds a lot like stop and frisk to me, but with an end around to get around it, not actually being stop and frisk. But honestly, if that's the straw that you're grasping at to try and bust a known drug dealer or a known gangbanger or what have you, come on, investigators, do your job better. Get creative.
Yep.
Be better cops. That, and I support, especially rank and file police officers. If there's a cop that I don't like, it's not because they're a cop, it's because they're a douche.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, I 99.9% back law enforcement because I don't back that 0.1% that's a douche. Yeah, if you got to cheat to do it, then get better. I'm sorry, but Omaha people deserve every right that every other Nebraskan has, and Nebraskans deserve every right that the Constitution says we have.
Right.
10X Shooter says his son did not know he would have to register his firearms when he moved to Omaha. Yeah. Yep. He said, Agorizer would keep people safe by wrapping all pedestrians in bubble wrap instead of slowing down the cars. Now, I don't know. I still think my plan works. I guarantee my plan works. We slow every car down to 20 miles an hour and traffic accidents go almost to zero. They don't go to zero, but they drop so drastically. We're talking about at least a 90% reduction in car accidents. Now, road rage incidents, I think, are going to go way up because we're used to driving faster.
Well, wouldn't that encourage like pedestrian dodgeball?
Frogger? That'd be the new gang initiation because they wouldn't be able to have a gun. But hey, yeah, if you can get through this, Dodge Street during rush hour, going everybody goes 20 anyway. It feels like. So what's the difference?
This is true.
Had a couple spots on I-76 rolling into Denver a few weeks ago where we were going about 20. We almost came to a complete stop once. Or did we come to we did.
That was everybody going into Denver at least one time on that trip, down from Cheyenne or whatever. It's like at least one time you're going to stop,
Yeah.
Usually people aren't anticipating it and then it gets nasty, but yeah.
Yeah, there's some good times. I've been dead stop. I've different trip to Denver, but I have been full stop on I-25 right there close to downtown because it's just traffic was backed up that much. I don't think there was even a wreck. I think it's just a normal rush hour thing. What have I missed or any other comments out there? Have I really missed anything? Agorizer still looking for the shoulder thing that goes up. Go check the Sandhills Media Facebook page out. I put a picture of it up here a week or two ago now. I do have a picture of the shoulder thing that goes up. Somebody found it. So you can see what that looks like. Yeah, a game of pinball on 70th and Dodge or O Street in Lincoln. Something. All right, so let's get back on track here. Other reasons why constitutional carry should be passed. Now, they could be reasons that it's good, or it could be taking away things that are bad. Like the people that can't afford to take the class and go get the permit. They deserve protection just as much as anybody else. So, what are some of the other things that the current permitted system is detrimental? Anybody want to throw anything out there? I can think of an instance. I won't say who it is or the relationship, but somebody that I know, and this person's female, lives in Omaha, and had an incident where she had a stalker. I think it was somebody that she used to date. She lived in an apartment complex, so it's not like she could do a whole lot as far as big barricades or change the structure much. I always recommend change out your door hinge screws and your latch plate screws for the 3-inch deck screws. Makes a huge difference there. But other than that, there's not much you can do in an apartment, right? I mean, it's not like the landlord's going to come through and put steel security doors in for everybody or stuff like that, or install extra deadbolts or whatnot and all the windows are still made of glass. So there was a time where she was seriously considering getting a gun. And it's not just in her home that she would have been unsafe. Now, I think everything kind of blew over. She called the cops multiple times. There's nothing they could do because he wasn't trying to force his way in. He was just, out there in the apartment parking lot. And, they can't really remove somebody just for that because he hadn't done anything to actually threaten her. But every time she looked out the window, there's the dude out there. Now she could have maybe had a firearm for in the apartment. Doesn't help her when she leaves. And this is again a case where even if money hadn't been an issue, time is of the essence, right? And that's another thing where you have to wait till the class gets scheduled. You have to find the class. You have to take the class. Then you have to schedule an appointment with the state patrol, and you have to wait after that for your permit to come within 45 days. And so that being the case, I mean, we're looking at the very least, we're looking at, what is that, about 7 weeks on the low side. 7 weeks where you still, even if you have a gun, you can't take it out of your house, out of your apartment, and carry it because you'd be illegal in doing so, and you don't want to break the law. So the choices are break the law, take your chances, and at least know that you're going to be alive in jail versus, dead at a red light somewhere, or take your chances, with the creeper guy. So, I mean, any decision where one of the two options is become a criminal and the other option is become dead, potentially, I don't know. That seems like not a good thing too. Whereas without the permit, she'd have been legal to just go carry that thing with her any place she went that didn't prohibit guns. So that's a huge, huge thing there.
And God forbid we have another pandemic that delays people's renewals up to 12 weeks on their carry permits.
Gosh.
That was my I had a family member that went through that. He had to, he filled it in 30 days early and wasn't getting any response. And they said, oh, well, we don't have anybody doing it right now because nobody's there to do it. So we're going to fax you a piece of paper and make sure you have that on you. So if something happens, it can show that we're processing. We just kind of let all that stuff go whenever bad things happen. Then it doesn't matter anymore,
Yeah, and with the time thing too, they say it takes up to 45 days. They take the full 45 days here.
Yeah, they pretty much do. Well, I tell you what, I had the experience the first week in November. It took me a little bit because I had to get my driver's license updated first when I moved. And then when you move, then you have to get your driver's license done first. Then you can go. It takes about 2 days after that for everything to filter through the system. Then you can go onto the state patrol website and update your address and get your updated permit sent out. Now, here's the thing. I'm still legal to carry as long as I've got the receipt in that email that says that I did submit the form. And I had the lady from the state patrol office actually tell me that. Is keep, have that email handy. And if I ever get pulled over and my address doesn't match from my driver's license to my permit, as long as it shows that I did submit the request, then we're good. But it took until, was it after Christmas or right before Christmas when I finally got my permit in the mail? It was the first week in November that I sent the thing off, and she said, well, it can take a while with a full month, and with Thanksgiving holiday, that makes it even take longer. And she said, if you don't have it by the 20th of December, then give us a call back. And it was right before Christmas. It was somewhere between the 20th and 25th that came in the mail.
And of course, John, when I moved, not only did I have to, get the new driver's license, but my license was about to expire. So I had to go to the office and turn in all the paperwork and show proof of residence before I could even get that. And then I couldn't do anything until I had a physical license to actually send off to the state patrol for my renewal on my carry permit. Then and then the carry permit was set to expire 60 days after my license was going to expire because when I took the class. So I'm going to end up having to retake the class. I'm not going to have any proof of residence to contact the state patrol to get my renewal,
Now, the good news is you get the 30-day grace period from when
did we have that 4 years ago? That wasn't the case 3 years ago, though.
No, it wasn't the case
14 days or something. 7
It wasn't the case until 2021.
Yeah, this was during don't ever sell your house during a pandemic, right? That's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
That actually didn't take effect until the beginning of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, now you have a grace period, but still it's 30 days, and you can't carry during that time. Your permit's still expired and invalid.
Yeah.
But at least you wouldn't have to sign back up for a class.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then it could be 30 minutes expired and you still have to sign up for a class.
Yep.
So yeah, Ozzy says in Illinois, 120 days, and they take every bit of that too. Yeah. Yeah. Where is it? New York that takes a year and a half. New York or New Jersey. One of them was taking over a year to get them. New Jersey. They were delaying them, and they're supposed to have 30 days. I think they were hemming and hawing and taking over a year. And again, that had to be a court case to get anything to talk about it.
You know, a 10X instructor makes a good point. And you, John, being a firearms instructor, he says, as an instructor, we get constitutional carry. People will still want training. I think if you had, constitutional carry, like legality courses you would offer people, like now you have this right, educate yourself on what you can do and what you can't do. I think those classes would be important for people too, to go through all the provisions and the laws and the consequences. And,
as soon as that, because, this law passes, as soon as the governor signs it, I'm going to be marketing an evening class. It's going to take about 3 hours time to go through the Nebraska statutes. And I'm going to start marketing that as an evening class on weeknights where people can just show up and learn what they need to know for state law.
Yeah.
And away we go. And
maybe talk to USCCA or US Law Shield. Get some. Those guys need to be supporting us too. That's a huge untapped market for Nebraska. Once it passes, people are going to want carry insurance,
Yeah,
actually, they have such a thing. Yeah.
I should talk to Brian. Brian Curley is the basically the supervisor, I guess, for Delta Defense, which is the parent company of USCCA.
Mm-hmm.
They do have reps that go out and go to concealed carry classes and talk about the benefits of USCCA. I should talk to Brian and just see, if Delta Defense would be willing to help us do something there too. That'd be awesome. One of our past board members from NFOA was, at the time, he was the USCCA rep, and he still is. He actually took a promotion that moved him to Phoenix, so he's not a board member and not even a Nebraskan anymore. But he is, but he just doesn't live here. He's down in Arizona, where they don't have to fight for that because that battle got won a long time ago. There's so many different classes. 10X says that's a great idea. He likes it. So many different classes that you can do. You can take that concealed handgun permit class and bust it up and do just the portions of it, separately. Like, when is deadly force justified? You could build that in with just deadly force incidents and their aftermath. You could talk about that and what to do if you've used your firearm in self-defense, right? Because there's a lot of people that don't know what to do, and if you watch TV and movies, you're going to get it wrong. So you do have the right to remain silent, but you need two things. You need number one, the ability, and two, you need to remember to invoke the right to remain silent and then go ahead and remain silent. So those are things. Who cares if the cops, it doesn't make you look guilty. And in all honesty, any law enforcement officer will tell you this. Who cares if the cops think you're guilty? It's not up to what the cops think. It's up to what the prosecutor thinks.
Wouldn't it be nice if the cops did some community service by showing up at these meetings and also being there to do a Q&A with people, or maybe point out some do's and don'ts, or maybe some things that, have law enforcement there too. Say, we'll go over the statutes and this is what we deal with on our end. This is what you should know. Instead of watching all these YouTube videos of all these former police officers saying, this is what you do if you get pulled over with a concealed firearm, Every
state, that's kind of state specific too, what to do if you're pulled over with a firearm, because that's, and here's the thing. How many people who have not been to a CHP class are going to know there's a duty to inform in Nebraska? I mean, it would behoove the average citizen to seek out a class. And if the option is there to not have to sit through a full 8-hour class on a Saturday, then I think that it would just be a huge thing, because, duty to inform the areas in Nebraska that are prohibited for carry, because that all stays the same, whether permit or permitless, doesn't matter. You still can't carry in church unless you are part of the church security team and it's documented. Hospitals and emergency rooms, any building with a courtroom in it, even if like the city library is part of the city building, but there's also it's part of the courthouse or anything like that, then that's off limits. Even if it's a different wing, if it's attached to the building, then it's off limits. That's why there's no concealed carry in the state capitol. because the state Supreme Court convenes in that building as well. There's a courtroom. Therefore, the whole building is off limits. The outside grounds are not off limits, but only open carry is allowed inside.
Yep.
So let's
go back. Here's another good talking point that we kind of brushed on a little bit. You don't need a permit in Nebraska to open carry unless you're in Omaha. Again, Omaha has special rules. We're trying to fix that too in the same process here. But outside of Omaha, open carry, totally legal, no permit needed. As long as you're able to possess a handgun, you can carry it open, and you're not breaking any laws. Again, if you're not in a prohibited place either. But there aren't very many prohibited places for open carry. Of course, private property, the owner gets, or the manager gets to make that call. But open carry in a bar, there's no law against it. If the bar owner is okay with it and you're not being stupid, then is it a good idea? Probably not. Is it against the law? It's actually not. Same thing would be open carry in church. These are places that are prohibited for concealed carry.
So John, hold on, I'm confused here.
Now,
if there's a restaurant that says no concealed weapons, you can take your weapon in unconcealed?
No, if that still carries the weight of law.
Okay,
if they don't,
hold on. It depends on the sign. If it says no concealed weapons, then you can take a chance of causing a panic. And now the manager is going to come right over and ask you to leave.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm just saying I never thought of it that way.
If it says no firearms, it depends on what the sign says.
Yeah,
which has to be placed conspicuously, as by the way, also. But there are no laws on the books concerning open carry once you get outside of Omaha. Omaha requires a permit or a CHP, which does have preemption. Other than that, no open carry in Omaha, but outside of Omaha, not needed. Now, here's the thing. The state has already determined that I don't need a permit or training to carry a firearm. The only time I need a permit and or training is if I want to put my coat over top of my firearm.
Yep.
And that's a big thing. That's a big objection is, well, I think that there ought to be some sort of training before we just let people carry willy-nilly and let anybody and everybody have it. If that's the case, are we going to apply that to every other right as well? I think there ought to be some sort of training before people can talk on Facebook.
Or YouTube.
On social media at all. I think there ought to be some First Amendment training. Learn how to use your words. Also learn how to frickin' spell and learn grammar. Learn the difference between there, and there, or two, and two.
My.
Well, why not require an IQ test before you're allowed to have children? I mean,
yeah,
that one might be useful sometimes.
Yeah, no, I mean, so there's another one. Training before you're allowed to have children. You've got to have a class on how to raise children, right, and how to not be a dumbass parent. Now I get it. Parents learn more from their kids, and the kids learn from the parents most of the time. But no, I think that in order to exercise your First Amendment, you need to go through some training. Before you can go to church, you have to go through some training before you can go worship. Whether that's Sunday school class, Sunday school should be required before you can go to church, because you need to learn about Jesus or Allah or whoever before you can go into the main worship service, right? So let's require training there. Let's require training for this stop and frisk thing. You can't be safe from illegal search and seizure until you've been trained on your rights. Now we're cutting social studies out of school. We're cutting civics out of school anyway. So a lot of people don't get that training. A lot of people aren't aware of their rights. And that's a huge underlying factor to the problem that we have trying to get these rights back, because the greater public isn't even aware that they have these rights. So when they're gone, they don't miss them because they never knew they had them. But at the same time, let's go back to this applying the training. There's no other right that requires training. I can exercise that right whether I do it correctly or not. There's no prior restraint placed on exercise of that right. There's no training required. If I get it wrong, then I have to face the consequences. That's all there is to it. And again, firearms can take lives, but words can take them too. How many people in the Lincoln school system, Defense Dad, you've got a kid in the system. Travis, you work in the system. You hear these horror stories of the kid that gets bullied and takes his or her own life. And they didn't use a gun to make that kid kill themselves, right? Just mean words. An onslaught of mean words. Those words caused that kid to die because they couldn't take it anymore. They got bullied too much. Okay, bullying doesn't happen anymore where there's a big kid pushing a little kid down on the playground. That's rare anymore. Bullying happens, it's cyberbullying. It happens all the time on the social media and everything else, and it's a huge, huge thing. And I know I don't have to tell the parents, and I don't have to tell the teacher in the room here. That's not news. But don't tell me that words are any less deadly than firearms, because it's absolutely 100% not true. So, but yeah, that's a huge thing. Why should I have to take a class and get a permit to put my coat over my gun? I'm no more dangerous with my coat on than my coat off, and the state doesn't require me to go through that with my coat off. I don't become a different person. Putting my coat and concealing my firearm doesn't instantly give me nefarious thoughts. I don't start thinking of, oh, I've got a gun that nobody knows about. Who can I go shoot today? That's not how it works.
You know, hey, the state doesn't have mandatory education on how to open carry your gun. They leave it up to you to educate yourself on the laws and what's allowed and where and what you can carry and what you can't carry and how to carry legally.
My point.
That's
exactly
just it.
My point.
So now you want to cover with a piece of fabric, and now people are just freaking out about it.
I'm no more a threat to society with my firearm concealed than I was with it open.
Well, it really drives me nuts are people that, this is what I hear from people, even members of my own family. Well, now that just means anybody can go out and get a gun and then conceal it. It's like, well, they can already go get a gun and unconceal it. What's the problem if it's covered? You mean they're going to be subject to the law like anybody else if they're caught concealing? In fact, it'll be more of a punishment if you are.
Yeah,
so,
I did.
Well, and here's the thing. They can go out and get a gun and conceal it now.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not legal, but they can still do it.
Yeah.
I talked about that in a video a year and a half ago. I was at Shields, and someone in the gun department was there purchasing a gun, and the wife was literally speaking out loud to her husband and saying, I think it's horrible everyone wants to conceal the gun and everything. Like, it's crazy how even people who were there to purchase a gun think somehow concealing it makes it some malicious intent.
Well, okay, and let's go down this train of thought a little bit farther. Again, I'm thinking back to some of the arguments that again, opponents of the bill during the floor debate brought out. You know, I think some training should be required. It was who ran for county attorney in Lancaster County? Adam Morfeld.
Oh.
Yeah.
Said one of the things that he was saying is that at least with open carry, everybody knows it's there. Okay, but what difference does it make? That gun's no more dangerous if you don't know I have it than if you do know I have it.
Yeah, quite honestly,
why would anybody outside of a tyrant, why would anybody need to know what you have on your person?
Yeah, people don't need to know.
If you're not a criminal, then what difference would it possibly make to anybody else if you've got that firearm?
Just like people don't need to know what's in your pockets. Like, I mean, they don't need to know how many knives they carry on me at a certain point. I mean,
exactly right.
If the three of us were to do a pocket dump right now, there'd be different levels of equipment in our pockets. What deal does it make? Honestly, open carry has a tendency to make more people nervous. Like, if with concealed carry, it puts people at ease because they don't know you have a gun, so they're not, because people get nervous when you walk around and you see it. Not everybody,
depending on the setting where you are. In Lincoln, I could see people getting a lot more nervous than even in Norfolk. Not so bad, but even out where I came from.
If you're in a crowded area, I definitely wouldn't want to be open carrying, because then you have to be a lot more conscious of it. I mean, so theoretically, yeah, you could actually be more dangerous open carrying in a situation like that, because now you've got to be aware of everybody around you. who might be having a nefarious reason.
Yeah, exactly right. So let's go back to, why would Morfeld say that he wants to know that somebody has it? He wants to be able to see it and know that they have it. Why? Because he's projecting his feelings about guns onto the general public. He thinks that only criminals would want a gun, that a law-abiding citizen wouldn't have a use for one. Therefore, if you want a gun, and especially if you want to conceal it, that you must have some sort of nefarious intent. And he's projecting his own shortcomings and his own feelings onto the general population.
Well, and the whole being able to
simply-
protect ourselves, like show of hands, who on here in the panels had a gun pulled on them in their life? 3 times.
Never.
Oh, I have not.
So why would you want to carry a gun?
About a
I've had
dozen
gun pulled on
times.
me.
But I don't want to.
I've been shot at 6 times, and I've had about a dozen times I've had a gun pulled on me, and I've had a knife pulled on me multiple times.
Dude, we've talked about this. If you would have just stayed on the reservation where you belonged, they wouldn't have shot at you.
Well, and
You know
everybody
what?
says
You're just
though,
jealous. I still have my hair, John.
well, it does. It has.
That
it
is
does-
too true.
Gee,
It
Joe,
doesn't have
Missouri
much
must
to
be
do
really
with
rough.
yeah. It doesn't have much to do with location too, because you said Joe, you said you grew up in South Omaha, right?
Correct.
I grew up in Podunk, Middle Nebraska, and so it can happen anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I've had a shotgun pulled on me out here before. You're out hunting, and all of a sudden somebody comes rolling up on you, and they want to. They're trying to make a deal about it because they feel like you're on public hunting ground, but they act like it's their own. And that was one situation I ran into. And you're just kind of like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, and you bring it up, and you're like, no, this is public, man.
Well, and we've had it happen where it was we were drag racing, and the person who lost and didn't want to pony up the money that they owed. I mean,
That's why you go for pink slips, defense dad. That's why pink slips.
Well, either way, you might have to pull a gun on somebody just to collect the pink slip.
Right.
Or I'll give you the pink slip, but I'm keeping the keys and driving this sucker out of here. Hope I can outrun your shotgun there. I want to bring another thing up too, because this is more of a generalization, not from the debate last year, but I've heard on from more than one place. Sometimes it's even like the Harpies from The View. I know that this has been mentioned on that show. But this is a very common theme among the people who don't want anybody to have a gun, let alone permitless concealed carry. But I don't know why anybody would want a gun. If I had a gun, I would end up shooting somebody, or I'd shoot myself with it. Therefore, I don't think anybody should have a gun because they're just not safe. Which is, again, a very dangerous projection of that one person's ineptitude, I guess, foolishness, stupidity. They think that just because they're stupid or inept, everybody else must be too.
I would just tell that person that obviously a firearm's not the thing for you, so just don't go buy it.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you are afraid to have a gun because you're afraid you'll shoot yourself or somebody else with it, then whether it's through negligence, ineptitude, or malice, because I can't have guns in my house because I don't trust myself to not go on a killing spree. Okay, then yeah, you probably shouldn't be left alone to your own devices in your own house either. I think that you need to be locked up in a padded room somewhere. If you're just negligent or stupid, then I agree, you should not have a gun. Right? That's goes back to taking responsibility for your own self, your own safety, and your own actions. Guns are not for everybody. Just like talking on YouTube is not for everybody. I've got a ton of great friends who want nothing to do they don't ever want to be a guest here because it's just not what they want to do is talk even off camera, not run their camera. And so, yeah, but keep in mind that just because one person, just because you don't like something doesn't mean that it should be illegal for everybody. I don't like cigarettes, but I don't think that they should be made illegal. I think that if people want to take their chances, that's, it's not my lungs. I'll stand upwind of you. You go have fun. Don't smoke in my house or in my car. I have control of that. But otherwise, it's not up to me. I am glad that there's no smoking in public buildings in the state. I'm happy about that, because that way the people who do choose to smoke are the only ones that have to smoke. The rest of the people in the building don't have to. Not picking on you on purpose, Joe, but just in general.
Look, I don't miss the days when you'd go to a bar or restaurant and then come home smelling like a campfire and having to change your clothes. I mean, oh my God. I mean, that was like,
oh, I used to be a smoker, and like even I would sit there and in the smoking section, and like there's no walls here. The non-smoking section's the other side of the booth.
I walk into a casino, like in Iowa or South Dakota, and it's just like, oh my gosh, there's so much smoke in here.
I don't know. I love going. G-Web's posted a pretty fierce comment there. I think we should debate that. I think that people that have 9mm should quit being treated like second-class citizens. G-Webs.
Yeah, hey, 9mm
I agree. What are you talking about, Travis? You're all about the 10mm this year.
I know, right?
9mm is the Chevy 350 of calibers.
Look, John, I'm just looking out for the little people in the world.
10mm is.
It's the ribeye to your single patty Mickey D.
If there was a 40 caliber guy who needed to compensate for other shortcomings, and 40 wasn't quite enough, then he'd go to 10mm.
Maybe he doesn't do 40 super carry anymore. Maybe he wants the real deal. All right, seriously.
40 super carry.
Yeah, 40 super carry. That's 40 Smith. They should just rebrand it as 40 super carry. Then people start buying it again, thinking it's something new. 40 super carry, Springfield Armory. Telling you.
That's awesome.
I like the guy's voice. He's just like on a mission in that 30-second commercial, Anyway, you guys know what I'm talking about. You ever watch the Springfield commercials? Not to change the topic, but here, John, I want to share something. I can give you like one good reason why we need to allow constitutional carry. I'm getting tired of us being the Sesame Street skit where one of these things isn't like the other. I mean, look at that. That is just an atrocity. Like, you got that graphic popping up on there? Look at that. Look at that. That spot in the middle of the flyover state. Tornado Alley is not complete without the tornado. Come on, man. Bring the blue in this case, right? Yeah.
We've got South Dakota, Iowa, Kansas, even Missouri.
Isn't the peer pressure alone reason enough just to pass this? We can just blend in like our cohorts, I mean, we already share water with all these states. Why can't we just share our freedom? I mean, seriously. It's ridiculous. It really is. That needs to end right there. That's just makes us look bad, right? The good life? Does. Oh, not quite. Yeah.
No, it does. It does make us look bad. Now let's talk about this a little bit. And this is not necessarily permitless carry, but J Boz has a great comment out here.
Oh man.
My mom, uncles, and sister, why do you need to carry a gun? Why do you need so many bullets in the clip? It's tiring arguing with them. Can't explain it with logic and reasoning. When you guys run into that, what do you say?
Because I can.
Okay, but that's not going to convince anybody. Let's I know.
Why do you own a car, Grandma? Because I can. Okay.
Defense Dad, I know you've got people in your family that don't see the world the way that you do. So have you had that conversation with them when they say, why do you want a gun that holds 30 rounds?
It's not so much tell me 30 rounds. So one of my family members was there on one of the occasions I had a gun pulled on me. Yet he will not have. She owns a 12 gauge, but he refuses to keep any ammunition in his house because his whatever they call it. But he's got a sheep doodle. That's all the protection they need in 911. You're not gonna. I just got to the point where I don't have those conversations because it's just a bad time in my family.
No, I totally understand. And it's just one of those things where it's having been to Ed Monk's active shooter class that he presented there in Omaha the day of our NFOA annual meeting. There's so much of what he said that applies not only to schools or churches or active shooter incidents. It applies also to just a single firearm owner as well. But here's the thing: the chances may be slim that you'll ever run into multiple attackers. but they're never zero. I'm gonna mute you there, Joe, because whatever you're doing, it's picking up on the mic there. The chances are never zero that you're going to be facing multiple attackers. And if I ever face multiple attackers, my choices are I can carry a lower capacity gun like my 5-shot revolver and hope that I have enough rounds to defend myself, and I can incapacitate all of my attackers with only 5 rounds. Now that means that I've hit every one of them probably only one time. Even if there's 2 or 3 attackers, I'm only going to get, no more than 2 rounds per attacker in that gun without a reload. Now that leaves me with the other half of that plan is to hope that it works out okay for me. And hope is not a plan. You cannot trust your self-defense, your safety to hope. I could go driving 90 down the road without a seatbelt and hope I'm okay. But I wouldn't recommend anybody doing that because that hope does not get you anywhere. So hope is a great thing. Like Ed Monk says, hope is an amazing thing, and every human needs to have hope. But you can't have it as your plan. You can't hope that things are okay. So my other choice is to recognize the fact that there are ugly things that happen in the world, and I would rather be over-prepared than under-prepared. Yeah. So I would much rather have the most ammo that I can carry with me in my firearm and a reload, especially for an automatic, because the number one contributing factor to automatic malfunctions is the ammo and or the magazine. Those are the two contributing factors. So you can swap them both out with a mag change, right? So why would I want a gun that carries 10 rounds, 15 rounds, 20 rounds in the magazine, whatever? Because I never know how many it's actually going to take to stop the threat or threats.
You look at video of home invasions, there's a lot of times where there's one person gets through, there's 2 or 3 left outside the door waiting to come in. For those people who think there's, like I talked about earlier, like they think, well, I can just call 911. Ask them what their response times are. Like response times are all over the place in the country. They anywhere from 5 minutes to over 20 minutes to even longer some places. And even if it's 5 minutes, a lot could happen in 5 minutes. Just think what you could do in your house in 5 minutes, and the layout.
Hey, John, how long does it take to get a sheriff out to your parents' house?
Depends on if he's home or not. If he's home, it doesn't take near as long than because he lives halfway between town and my dad.
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends on if he's at home or if he's in his cruiser. But if he's at let's say it's a Saturday night and there's a Norton dance, and if he's out there, which he is for the Norton dances, to get to my dad's house, even driving 90, it's going to take a good half hour.
Rest my case.
Yeah, or close to it.
Gee, a pretty good point too. What if the gun was carried by a young single person who lives in a dangerous place? Should they be limited to less than the criminal?
Well, and here's the thing, that argument goes off the rails really quick, because if you're having this discussion with somebody, again, they very quickly revert back to the way the world should be and not the world that we actually live in. So yeah, if the criminals are going to carry high capacity magazines, or as we call them, standard capacity magazines, then shouldn't I have at least as much as what the criminals are likely to have? If criminals have full auto, then why should I be limited to semi-auto? Now, the logical next response to that is, well, they shouldn't have that either. You're right. They shouldn't. However, I don't get to live in the world that should be. I have to live in the world that is. Therefore, I have to prepare for bad people to do bad things.
Or then they say, well, the odds are you're never going to be involved in a blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, that's nice, but,
and you know what? I know people that have driven a car for 50 years and never been in an accident. So should those people cut the seatbelts and the airbags out of their car? I mean, the odds are that they're very safe in their car. So there's really no reason for safety equipment, right?
You know, like in my case, where I grew up, I mean, there was multiple times I'd get jumped by 4 or 5 people at a time. It was a monthly occurrence. It just happened. You know, in my case, as a minor, I wasn't allowed to carry, but you know, there was you know, that's a very good example of the situation. It happened. My other argument is you know, you'll see officers when they do respond, like in my case, it can take 10, 15 minutes to get here if something happens, because I live in a rural area now. That can happen. But on the other hand, we've seen multiple cases where officers who are supposed to be trained and actually are really good shots, and they'll talk about at the end of the day, they had 3 or 4 officers and they'll estimate they went through 60, 70 rounds. I mean, if they're, you know, why is somebody that is supposed to be trained in how to use these things effectively going through that many rounds? And they wouldn't be able to do that unless they were running, quote, high capacity as well.
Right. Yeah,
you know, so
when it hits the fan, you'll revert back to the lowest level of your training. And that's why we see even quote unquote trained law enforcement officers often resort to the mag dump, the spray and pray, right? Instead of controlled shots, because they just don't have that much training on the range. And don't think for a second that because somebody has a badge and carries a gun for a living, that they're gun people or good shots. They shoot just well enough to qualify, and they may actually pull that gun out of that holster once a year, maybe, to qualify. And that might be the only time that gun ever gets used, other than to maybe clean it. But that, you know, just because they're law enforcement doesn't make them gun people any more than you know, they're car people. Well, they drive a car for work too, don't they? Are they car guys? Well, not necessarily. I drive a car every day. I'm not a car person. So that doesn't necessarily mean that again, the training is so minimal when it comes to the firearms. They've got so much other stuff to worry about as far as keeping track of laws and all that stuff, and just, you know, being in condition yellow and observing things, right? So that gun is a small part of being a cop. We make it out to be a way bigger portion than it really is. If we're not police officers, then we don't really realize that.
A lot of people take it for granted, and I mean, this is for everyday citizens who have our CHP or law enforcement. You know, everybody can say, like you stated earlier, and I've heard you say it twice now today, you know, what the world is and what it, you know. But you had an adrenaline. Talk to anybody who's a military vet, you know, that has actually been in a firefight, and they grew up with firearms and everything else, and if they're honest, you know, they'll tell you, boy, my nerves were so bad I couldn't hardly reload my firearm or this or that. And they grew up, you know, hunting squirrels and rabbits, had never had a problem, went through training and everything. But
yeah,
once
I've
you get
got
under
a sneaking suspicion. I've heard that you know, there's no such thing as an atheist in a foxhole. And
right.
I've got a sneaking suspicion that, you know what else you don't find in a foxhole? Clean underwear. No, I don't know for sure, never having been in one. But you know, that's one of Clint Smith's big things. You know, when he gets going off on a rant is, you know, when you've never been there, then you think you know how it is, but when you're actually, you know, when you're there and you're in the mud and you've got shit in your shorts, then you've got that's how he says it. You know, everything's different then. But that's exactly how Clint Smith words it is, you know, apparently when you're in actual combat, that pooping yourself is not unheard of, and apparently not even uncommon. So especially when it's your first time out and you've never dealt with that before. Now, some of the old seasoned veterans maybe that have been through it multiple times, but those guys, if they've been through it multiple times and they're still alive, those are the guys you got to watch out for. So, all right. Do we have any other talking points? I want to mention this real quick, just because it is true. G-Web says the official study of the odds have recently been removed from CDC. And that's true, which was at the behest of some anti-gun groups, the way I understand it. But the CDC pulled that down and no longer uses or shows the defensive gun uses. Just more fuel for the fire for the people that say, well, you know, there's no such thing as a good guy with a gun. Guns don't get used all that often to protect people. Well, when you take away the proof off the website, it's really hard to point to it now, isn't it? But the fact remains that, and we don't know the estimate. There's a reason why they estimate 400,000 to 2.5 million, because most DGUs don't ever get reported because people are afraid they're going to get in trouble. And most of the time, just brandishing is enough to deter the criminal. No shot needs to be fired. So you pull that gun, they say, oh, expletive deleted, and they run away. Then that gun saved your life, but there's no way to prove it, and there's no record of it because you don't call the cops, because you don't know if you're going to get in trouble for what you did. So
again, Monk makes a good
laws.
Point to that. Like you were saying earlier, Ed Monk made some really good points, though, as far as you know, in that one that we've seen that he put together for the active shooters. How many was it where civilians actually stopped it compared to law enforcement or even off duty? I mean, it was like almost 2 to 1, wasn't it? If I remember correctly.
Well, I don't remember that part. What I remember is
I thought there was like 12, and I think 9 were civilians, and I think 3 or 4.
But again, that's just from the instances that he was talking about in his presentation.
Correct.
That's not comprehensive, so we can't really go off of that. What is interesting, though, out of that is when he said that of all the cases that he's looked through, the number of times that the police officers missed and hit somebody that they didn't mean to hit, there was a few of those instances, and when it was civilians who stopped the active threat, 0 instances of hitting an innocent bystander. So that was interesting to me. Was that there weren't any case, you know, that's another thing. Well, you know, you don't have the training that cops have, and if you go after an active shooter, then you know you might miss and hit everybody else. And well, the data does not support that argument at all. There's no data to support that. But anyway, we need to start wrapping things up. So we're going to go give everybody a chance for any closing thoughts and kind of go from there. So we started working our way counterclockwise, so we'll go backwards tonight. Travis, closing thoughts, and where can people find what you do online?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just think it's again, it was a good discussion tonight to kind of go back and, like I said, look at the history of how we got to where we are. And again, it's because we, the people, or we're treating it like it was a second class ride instead of doing our diligent duty to not let that happen. But again, you know, let's just hope that things go well. And I'm excited for the efforts that NFOA has been putting in towards, you know, and Senator Brewer pushing for the constitutional carry, LB 77. I think people need to go check out the NFOA town hall meeting with Brewer, because I thought that was a really good meeting that had a lot of great information for people that are curious about it. That's the kind of thing I almost want to share with family members, you know, so they can watch us. They have an idea as to what's going on and see what kind of questions we're asked.
I'm going to put a link to that out.
Yeah, get that out there, man. That was it. Really answered all my questions that I had. As for me, shameless plugs, check me out, my YouTube channel, Travis P11, and I got a new video that I put out yesterday, if I'm not mistaken, and Saturday morning at 8 a.m. we've got the Caliber Corner podcast, 8 a.m. Central Time. Check it out. And we'll be talking about the price of firearms. It's kind of an interesting little discussion that we'll be looking at. So should be good. G-Web says, when will there be some Nebraskans at SHOT Show? I want to go, G. I want to go really bad. Again, it's a work issue for me. It is. It's my situation where I am. But
I'm going to assign you some homework. I don't know how easy it is to find a specific booth out there. And I know that very rarely can anybody get over all of SHOT Show, and if you do, you like 12 seconds a booth or something. But if you're out there and you come across Mead Industries, he is a Nebraskan. He is an ammo maker, just down the road, not too far from Hornady, but he's a lot smaller entity. But if you run into Greg Mead from Mead Industries, tell him we said hi, because I know 3 out of the 4 of us know Greg. Yep. There's his logo right there.
And they make awesome ammo. They contributed to Thunder on the Prairie. They were the ammo supplier of 9mm.
Yeah,
so they are there. They are there at SHOT.
Yep, and yeah, Greg goes out there every year to SHOT Show. So the reason I met Greg in person was 2 years ago at the Deer and Game Expo, and that was when SHOT was canceled due to COVID. So he ended up putting a booth in at the Deer and Game Expo instead because he had nothing else to do that week.
One more last quick shameless plug. G-Webs, Mead, do you have a question mark? G-Webs, go watch our factory tour. Me and Defense Dad, go watch our factory tour on our channel if you didn't get a chance to check it out. Because they're very, very unique with what they do. They are a 1 in a million industry business.
He actually, the ammo manufacturing is a spin-off. His business is manufacturing the equipment to manufacture ammo.
Yeah, they have a saying, if you shot a gun in the last 39 years, you've likely shot ammo that came off of one of our machines.
Yeah.
And then they refurbish old machines that don't have parts available for them anymore. They modernize
sell
them.
the machines that your Winchester, your Remington, your probably Tula. I mean, they go worldwide with this stuff.
If you look at their client list, it's like a who's who in the gun industry.
Yeah, pretty cool stuff.
And so it's all published on their website.
G says you'll check them out. Cool. And tell Greg that the YouTube people from Nebraska say hi. Yeah, he even donated to Thunder on the Prairie, right? You said?
Yep, they donated the ammo 900, was 300 round boxes of frangible ammo, which was not cheap. And so they did that for us. They gave me a box of 308 to test out. I had a good time with that. Gave us a full factory tour, showed us everything. So, yeah. Yeah,
his name, Greg Mead, is the owner of the company. He runs it.
Was Tom going to be there too? I forget what he said in the interview.
Probably because he's, second in command, isn't he? More or less of
Greg's
operations. Yeah.
But I actually, from doing this, I knew Greg from Facebook, and then I met him in person there in Lincoln a couple of years ago. But yeah, he's not been back to the Deer and Game Expo because he goes to SHOT and then everything else, and it's usually the same week or it's right after. I don't remember the dates on SHOT, but Deer and Game Expo is coming up. I'll let Joe talk about that here in a little bit. But anything else, Travis, that you wanted to
No, that's good. Just search Travis P11. You'll see all the social networks I'm available on. I'm all over the place. So there you go.
Booth review forthcoming.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
Cool. All right. Travis, thanks for hanging out and
good time, bro.
Being part of the conversation. Mm-hmm. Defense Dad, closing thoughts. Where can people find what you're doing?
Oh, I think it was a good discussion. Had fun tonight. Thanks for having me. As far as where you can find me, just basically YouTube with Defense Dad. A little stuff on Instagram, but mostly YouTube.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for being here. And Joe, I'll give you a chance for any closing thoughts. And since I know you don't do online stuff so much, you want to talk a little bit about what NFOA's got in the works?
Yeah, we're going to be out at the Deer and Game Expo. Be the 20th, 21st, and 22nd. I do believe, John, you're going to be there all three days.
Figured on being there part of all 3 days. Yeah, Lancaster Event Center in Lincoln.
Correct. I'd like to have people come out and give us a shout out and come by and see us. The other thing NFOA has got going on as well is we're going to have a rally at the Capitol. He's throwing crap.
Sorry.
And I just had that information up here just a second ago, but I believe it's 11:30 outside and 1:30 to testify.
Actually, yeah. You know what? Here, let me do this real quick, just to piggyback off what you said there. I've got the NFOA page pulled up. The rally 11:30, weather permitting, outside on the steps, I believe. I don't know what we'll be able to do on the inside of the building, but we'll figure something out. So January 26th, 11:30 for the rally, and then I'm going to put this one back up here too. If you want to testify for the bill, that start the afternoon session for the hearing starts at 1:30.
Correct. And if anybody chooses to show up, we're asking everybody, even though you can open carry, that's not what we're looking for. Yes, absolutely. Just because we can doesn't necessarily mean we should. And we know that if the media is there, they will try to find whoever they can to make all of us look bad. We could have 500 or 1,000 people there. And if we have 2 or 3 that stick out like a sore thumb just because we can, this is not the time and place for that. So please use discretion.
Remember last year when Michaela Cavanaugh brought that up in her part of her objections, during that filibuster, is that
Did she use the "you
she
people"
still has
reference
the
while pointing at
PTSD.
the?
She's still in therapy because of how traumatized she was that day when people were just walking around in the Capitol with guns.
Yeah, the one main person did it put a whole negative thing on everything that was positive just because that's all the media focused on.
Now, was
Yep.
is that a ploy? I mean, I don't know her thoughts. I don't know her heart. Maybe she really did think she was in some sort of danger. Clearly she wasn't. Nothing happened, but she has that arrow now in her quiver because of that. So yeah, you have every right to open carry in the Capitol. Just remember that you don't represent only you that day. You show up, you represent all of us.
All Nebraska gun owners, not just the NFOA, all
Right.
Nebraska gun owners.
So please paint Nebraska gun owners as responsible, law-abiding citizens. But heavy on the responsible. And then that way, again, we just take that away from them as an objection. Because they try every year to do a rule change in the Capitol that says that they ban guns and they won't allow the open carry. And every year they get that squashed, but still,
the Rules Committee is
somebody
still in
brings it up
session
every time.
Yep.
Somebody
The
brings it
Rules
up every
Committee
time.
is still in session as of right now. They're still at the Capitol.
Yeah, that's not been squashed 100% yet.
No. They said normally they only get like 6 or 7 rule changes, and this year there was 55.
Yeah.
I talked to a senator at 7:30, and they were just up to 32. And he figured they were still like 3 hours out. So there's a good chance they're still out there. I was going to throw this out for those of us that are definitely wanting to contribute to certain bills that including constitutional carry. We were kind of going through something today, and one of the things is if you make a phone call to your senator and voice your opinion, it is not considered on the record. If you want to actually make a statement and have it put it on the record, you need to send either snail mail or an email and request that it be put on public record. The senator then puts your comment in a box, and a hard copy goes to each senator who is on that committee. So for constitutional carry, that is one way to also state your opinion, how you feel, and have it officially put in if you're not able to make it to the hearing. It's then put on a special drive that can be read by all senators if they look up the comments for that legislative action. So just to throw that out there, if you are wanting to back the bill, you need to send it in an email and ask to have it placed as public record. I guess that's about all I really have to add, even though John's deep in concentration right at the moment.
Sorry, I just posted the link to get to LB 77 on the legislature's website. And I was looking for the place to comment, but that's not up on that page yet. But there will come a spot on that page where you can actually submit a comment. Now that does get put into the record, and if you can't show up that day to testify, and you still want your comment counted, then there is an online place to do that, or that link will be coming up where you can do that. It has to be in by, I want to say, noon the day before. Usually is when the cutoff is. So noon on January 25th would be the deadline to get those in once that link goes live. And once we have that link, we'll be sharing that. I'll put it on this page, and I'll put it on, make sure that we get it on NFOA as well. But yeah, the link is there if anybody wants to read over the introduced copy. Now, here's the thing too, that I had to be told as I was learning how to do this. As you're looking at these bills, a lot of this just changes the existing statutes. So when you read through this, if it is underlined, then it's new text. That's the actual bill itself. If it's struck through, then this bill cuts that part out and replaces it with the underlined stuff. And if it's neither struck through nor underlined, then that's just how the statute already was. That's stuff that's not getting touched. So bills either cut out or add to the state statutes, and the underlined is what they add, and the strike through is what they cut, and the normal text just does it was already the law. It's not getting messed with this time in this bill. So as you're looking through that, if you see stuff that's not underlined or struck through that you're wondering, how can this possibly be? Well, it's the law now. That's how. So don't get your feathers ruffled by that. That is, if it needs to be addressed, this bill isn't addressing that. This bill does something else. And keep in mind, this bill does one specific thing. This is a 7/8 inch, combination wrench. It does two things. It does an open end or it does a box end, but only on a 7/8 inch nut, right? It's not a ratchet. It's not a hammer. It's not a screwdriver. It's not a pair of vice grips. It does one specific thing. It turns nuts or bolt heads. That's it. So there's different stuff, but this particular bill does its function. So keep all that in mind. Okay. We'll talk about that more as time goes by, but my beautiful producer is telling me that we're running out of time here. So we're going to wrap this up. We're going to go through the list. Who do we have out there? I didn't see any Facebook comments except for the ones that I made myself. So I think I was the only one out there commenting on the Facebook side. On the YouTube side, we had Sam of Anarchy. We had Guns and Barbecue, Blitz, 10X Shooters, Scott79, Clint, Taurus, Tacos and French Fries, AK Lover, Agorizer, Ozzy Osbourne, Vanessa Kitty, Travis P11, Tactical Turtle, Defense Dad, Hillbilly Up, Keith Gregory, G23, Tim S, Gunpowder Beauty, J Boz, G Webs, Gunmetal Guy USA. I didn't see that. That's a cool name. I don't think I've seen that name before. That's badass.
Oh yeah, he's been around.
He's been around for a while. Yeah.
I don't know that I've seen Gunmetal Guy
Maybe
USA
not
on
our show, but yeah.
this show though. So welcome. Yeah. And then Keith Umstead was out there as well. So again, if you weren't commenting, we didn't know you were watching. So Omaha, I know you're watching. But the rest of you need to get those comments in there. So meet us next week. We will have a show next week. It's 2 weeks that we won't do the regular show. But catch us back here 8:00 Thursday night next week, 8:00 Central Time, which is of course the only time zone that matters anyway. So on behalf of Joe and Defense Dad, Travis, Sandhills Sweetheart, Bella the Cat, Liberty the Dog, and myself, we love you all. God bless you. Thanks for watching. Please share this. If you haven't subscribed or followed, please do so. But we got to go. It's time for you to go. You know what you got to do. Get off my lawn.